I recently returned from my vacation, and for part of my vacation, I was out in Indianapolis. And you might wonder why somebody would be out in Indianapolis in the summer when it's so warm and hot, and we have so many beautiful places close by that we could go to. But I follow drum and bugle corps, and I've followed drum and bugle corps for years. Some of you may remember that at one time in the Boston area we had the CYO circuit, which had competitive bands and drum corps and drill teams from different parishes throughout the Archdiocese. And I was in one of the bands, St. Joseph's of Medway. And from that time, I've been following the drum and bugle corps because I just find them amazing. There's not too many of them left, although we can be proud in our own area because the Boston Crusaders, who are from Boston, Massachusetts, actually placed second nationally. Was the highest placement they've had in such a competition, and we have a reason to be proud of them. But when I arrive in Indianapolis, I usually arrive a day early. And the night before the competitions begin, I go to the Indiana State Fair. Now, the Indiana State Fair is kind of like the Topsfield Fair or the Big E. Probably take the two of those, combine them, and multiply them by 3. It's just a huge event with carnival rides, with all sorts of games and all sorts of exhibits. And one of the things that I always do is I go to the sheep barn. And in the sheep barn, there are probably about 200 sheep. And what happens is they're part of a 4-H contest, at least the night that I'm there. And one year, I was talking with the father who was there with the son. And the first thing that they do is the sheep goes in and they kind of inspect to make sure that the sheep was raised. And this man's son raised sheep. The son was probably about 10 years old at the time. And after the sheep is judged, then they actually have to shear the sheep. And so you have, you have a young person shearing the sheep. And I was watching, standing next to the father as the boy was shearing the sheep. And he was very gentle and very loving and kind with it. As he was doing it, you could tell he wanted to make sure he didn't hurt the sheep, but also wanted to do it well because he was being judged on it. Then after the sheep is sheared, they go to an arena. And in the arena, they are supposed to have the sheep do tricks. And the father was laughing because usually there might be one sheep or two sheep that are actually able to do the agility course, kind of like you'd have a dog doing an agility course. But also, too, you would see more often that the sheep had a mind of their own and really weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing. And that was actually, even if it didn't help the judging, it was actually what made it so enjoyable for those who were watching. But as the father was speaking to me and talking about his son and also his other children in the family, he pointed out that this son had a very special gift with the animals. And it wasn't just the sheep, it was pretty much all the animals on the farm. And the son was deciding what he wanted to do with his life. Now, of course, at 10 years old, you have a lot of time to make that decision. But he wasn't sure whether or not he wanted to be a veterinarian and take care of sick farm animals, or whether he wanted to follow in his father's footsteps and take over the family farm. And the father was hoping that the farm would be there if that's something he chooses to do, but also is very happy that he wants to do something else in the field as well, because he has such a special love for the animals that he cares for. And I was thinking about that a bit as I was thinking about the first reading we have today, where the prophet Ezekiel speaks about the shepherds not caring for the sheep. And I was kind of thinking as I was watching this young boy, this was a few years back now, but also, thinking about the reading, is the tender love and care he had for the sheep. And I had to wonder whether or not that was what the Lord was trying to portray as well. Because when we hear Ezekiel speak, he's talking about the shepherds not shepherding the sheep. And I think to understand it a bit more, for the Jewish people of Jesus' day, and also of Ezekiel's day, sheep were more than just animals. They were treasured. They were seen as wealth. Caring for them showed how much they loved God's gifts for them. And it was supposed to be something that showed a special compassion and concern. And Ezekiel is pointing out that that's not what's happening. And when he's speaking about sheep, he's talking about actually people. What he was talking about is that they weren't being cared for and loved and treated the way that God wanted them to treat them. but that God was going to step into the situation and correct it. And what we see when the Lord is speaking through the prophet Ezekiel is special love and care and compassion and concern that he has for all of us. And in a way, we see that also in the gospel. We hear Jesus speaking about this landowner who wants everybody to be a part of the kingdom, wants everybody involved, whether it's those who were first chosen or those who, for whatever reason, weren't selected. He wanted to know that they were all loved and that they were all meant to be together. And I think perhaps as we look at these readings and think about them in our own lives, it can remind us of God's special love and compassion for each of us, his care and concern that we see through his Son, Jesus Christ. And you know, at those moments where we may feel discouraged, at those moments we may wonder what we should be doing, or those moments where we're wondering how it is that we're called, to remember that God loves us and wants to shepherd us, and not only wants to, but does shepherd us through his Son, Jesus Christ.